Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thrive After Divorce show. Today, our guest is Ni Miyah, and
Hi.
happy to have you here. And we were just talking. I'm going to go over a little bit of your bio, but otherwise, we're going to go with the flow and just
Sounds
see
good.
where it leads us. But you are a mother of 4 boys. You have you're a very faith-centered entrepreneur, and you say that God's call into this industry is to free yourself, which was the last straw in your marriage. And when you were no longer controllable, dependent, or easy to manipulate, or willing to tolerate any more abuse, it looks like life opened up and you discovered your journey.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us about
That
that.
well, I was in a 12-year marriage. I got married when I was 19. I was the typical, oh, I have to be with this first person that I've ever had a long relationship with. And if you leave me, then I'm going to be alone forever and no one would ever love me again. Like that was the mentality that I had back then. And I was terrified of being alone. Like I remember the first time that I walked into my mom's apartment by myself since he and I had split up, and I froze in my tracks, and I had to call someone to be on the phone with me to walk me through the house because my panic attack was so bad. I had never been alone. So I went from being in a relationship in high school. Well, actually, I started, my first serious relationship with someone that I was with for multiple years in middle school. Then I went into a relationship in high school, and then from high school into my marriage. And I never had time for me. That was one thing, is like, I never got to know who I was. So
Right.
through all of that, I would leave one relationship, jump ship into another sinking ship instead of taking the time to make sure my ship by itself doesn't sink.
Yeah, create your own oars.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went through, or I tolerated myself to be abused, beat down mentally, physically, verbally for 12 years before I finally decided to take back my power. And it wasn't even a decision of, I'm taking back my power. That's not how it happens. It was just I'm fed up. I'm
Yes.
completely fed up with this situation. And I would rather live under a bridge than deal with another second of this.
You know what? That just sums it up so beautifully. Like, people want to make it deep, or you just get fed up where enough is enough.
Yeah, and that's the pivotal point in all of our life for every one of our transformations. As many people as we have worked with, the one pivotal thing that determines whether or not they spring forward or fall backward is that fed upness. When you're not fed up, you'll still tolerate it. You'll
No,
still allow it.
it is desperate. It's such a different word to me, because sometimes desperate can be like, you are desperate, but other times desperate can be a drive. Like, you are fed up. You will do
Yeah.
whatever it kicks you. It gives you that courage or momentum to, like, I'm fed up. I'm desperate.
Mhm.
I got to dig deep.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it did for me. We split up and got back together multiple times, the normal thing of, oh, I'll change. And then that never happens. And
Yeah.
so after so many years of that, like I said, I got fed up, and I remember I was praying because I had found out I was pregnant, and I was pregnant with the same person. And that when they told me, I broke down in tears, and the doctor was like, I hope this is happy cry. I'm like, this is kind of terrified cry right now because I just gave birth 9 months ago. I'm pregnant again, and I'm in a marriage that I know is not going to last. And now I'm going to have to do all of this myself. So I was terrified in the moment, but at the same time, I was willing to do whatever it took, like you said. So I broke down. I remember standing in the nursery, getting it ready for my third child. And I broke down on my knees, and I just threw my hands up in there, and I prayed to God, please just show me a way. Cause I don't need a miracle. I just need a way. That's it. I can do the steps. I can do it myself. And that's what he did. It was funny because I had an online opportunity show up in my news feed weeks prior to that. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, when I asked for that way, something else showed back up. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I remember it taking me 3 weeks to get it done. But by the time I got it done, I started making my own income online. I mean, from going from not knowing anything to making my first 5 figures in the first 3 months of my career without without an upline, without anybody showing me anything because they ran off on me. I just knew I had to do it. I had to make my way. And me going into that industry is what got me into personal development. And that started to get me to see my self-worth and my value. And then from there, it started to drive me into not tolerating anything anymore. And so that's what I was talking about. When I got to that point where I wouldn't tolerate it, I wasn't easily manipulatable anymore. I wasn't naive anymore. The tricks and the mind games didn't work on me anymore. So I forgot where I was going.
Well, that's a big leap to go. It's a big leap. Like I know it didn't happen overnight, but
No.
what I heard was you asked for help. Like you fell to your
Yes.
knees. I have fallen to my knees myself. And for anyone listening, but it's the idea of knowing I need help from something bigger than
Yes.
myself. So you asked for the help, you put in the work, and it got you to this place of strength.
Yeah.
But what were for people in the position of where you were at, just the smallest baby step? Was it just even clicking on the email or thinking I can do this?
It was answering the ad. That was the thing. I took that step and I answered that ad, and I had never answered an ad before. I'd always just second guessed it and bypassed it and, went on with my self-doubt instead of actually, well, maybe I could do this. And in that moment, what was I going to lose? That was my thought. It's like, what am I going to lose to do this? I'm at rock bottom. How much lower can I go? If I take a step, then at least I can try and go up. So that's where I was at in my thought process at the time. But yes, I did ask for that. And what was interesting is I made my way in that, and that me taking that leap brought us out of living in a trailer, living in what would be our dream home at the time in Florida near the beach. And 2 months after getting into that house, my marriage fell apart. I remember that, well, it already fell apart before that, but that was the final straw. I remember that I had got into the Forex industry, the financial markets industry, and I was teaching a lot of people how to do it. And I had taken a trade that night. And I remember we didn't have many groceries when I took that trade. And I had risked, I think it was $50 of the money that I did have to get in on that trade. And I put a pending order on there. And for anybody that doesn't know, a pending order means that it's going to take on its own. You don't have to actually manually do it. You just know where the market's going to go and it's going to pick it up. So I put that pending, and then me and him had a discussion, and I told him what I did, and that started a fight. And he locked me held me in the bathroom and was shoving me backwards, screaming at me, telling me that I needed to, he demanded that I explain myself. And I was like, no, I'm not a child. I had a conversation with you, tell you what's going on, but I'm not going to sit here and have this fight with you in front of our children. And he wouldn't let me out of the bathroom. And that was the final straw for me. I think that was the final straw for both of us, that we knew that, God lifted a veil for both of us. Right after that moment, we had that moment. We both had that recognition that this just doesn't work anymore. And then we had peace, and then we split. And that peace was us having a conversation of knowing this isn't for us. And we know this. So.
And then how old, because you had so many things that you could have said, just from what I've heard, like, I don't have time. Like you had, when you took those steps,
yeah,
little boys.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot to juggle in your mind too.
It is. I had my oldest son who was 7 at the time, my youngest son who was 9 months, and I was pregnant as well. So I had a lot going on, and I was battling depression. I was battling not postpartum, but before that I had the depression that you have while you're pregnant. I had that. And so I would be battling. Sometimes I'd be in the kitchen contemplating grabbing a knife and just ending it all. Like I was deep in depression, suicidal, deep in depression for many, many years of my life, cutting myself and everything. And it wasn't until I started to choose me instead of everything else out there and everyone else out there and all the things that weren't helping my soul and helping my well-being. When I started to choose that, that's when all of it faded away. The depression went away. The anxiety went away. The fear and the worry went away. Everything started to go away because I believed in me at that point. And I knew that no matter what, if I could withstand everything that I just went through, I can withstand anything. And so therefore, I never let anything else from that point forward be something that would put me down. I got put down enough in my life. I got put in that box and on that shelf far too long. And I was tired of being on that shelf. And so now I don't allow anybody to put me on a shelf or silence me or belittle me or, try and put me in a box or something like that. I don't allow it anymore. It gave me strength going through all of that and then coming out of it and realizing I'm fine. Because we didn't just split up and, like the normal, hey, well, here's the kids on the weekends and stuff like that. God took me on a different journey. He had my mom come get the kids and they went to her. And then he sent me off with a book bag and nothing else. I had nothing else, just my clothes. And I had to make my way on my own. And that was 4 years he sent me on that journey before I could get them back. And that was the most eye-opening experience I've ever had in my life because I got to learn every piece of me. What was my weakness? What was my darkness? What was sabotaging me? And the whole time it was always right here. Every bit of it was me. And so I was able to identify how I allowed it. How did I get in a marriage that was abusing me? Oh, simple. I made a choice to be there, just like I made a choice to stay there. I made a choice to not leave. When you take back that power, when you take that responsibility, that's where you get your power back. Wow. Because it's no longer someone else's fault that you were there. It's your own fault. And that's a powerful place because then you're like, well, then I'm in control.
So. Wow. That was some book bag that you had because wow, the place of power that you have come to and real power.
Yeah.
That inner power, that thing that no one will ever take away from you again.
That's right.
That from your faith to your belief in yourself, not to take away from anybody, but not like a arrogant power or I built this and if it all falls away tomorrow, I'm back to square one. You really, like to say you had time to learn every piece of me. Not many people get to do that. Or want to do that.
That's right. That's right. And they don't get the time and we find, like you said, they don't want to. It's a harsh mirror to stand in.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's not. And you can't run from yourself. It doesn't help you to run from yourself. And many people do that. They see something a little bit ugly about themselves or their behavior and they're like, I'll just put that away. Nobody saw that. Well, one thing that God showed me is that if I just broadcast all of me, then I have nowhere to hide. If I tell you all of my weakness, all my darkness, all of my sabotage and get it out there, I can't hide from it anymore and it can't hide in me. Therefore, it can't have power over me because if it is hiding in me, it's controlling me and I won't even know about it. So I took its power away. And I just started sharing my testimony. Here's the raw truth of what I've went through, but I never left it as I'm just complaining about what I went through. I said, this is what I went through. This is how I took back my power. And this is where I'm at right now. And you can do it too. Wow. So I always tried to make everything that I ever went through a testimony that I could share of triumph for somebody else who doesn't see the path out. If I can leave a light down that path, I'm going to leave that light because there's a million other us out there that are looking for that path.
And that's, why we have the show. And it's the idea that your story is going to be somebody else's survival guide.
That's right.
when, even if you think I can't get through, I have nothing to offer, but you do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes, I always say, how can I turn this into service? How can I turn my story
Yeah.
into service? But so what have you done? Now you have all the strength and knowledge. You have a podcast. You have a company. Tell us about how you're using this to help.
Okay. So one thing that I like to do is never forget where I started, so that I can keep building that bridge back to that space, because two people can live in different dimensions standing in the same room, and they can have a conversation and not even be able to comprehend each other. They think they do, but they don't, because they don't have the same level of perception. So what we try to do is bridge the gap and help people understand, or overstand for technical reasons, that how your soul is positioned in the ether, how it operates in the ether, what choices you make that either submerge you down into the below or rise you up into the as above. And that's one thing I went over the other day when I was talking about the Holy Spirit, because they tell us right in our face that when you're depressed, what do you go? You're going down. You feel down. It's always sinking you down. And there's that ethereal dimension has a resonant frequency that is very low. And my gift is being able to see behind that veil to those frequencies and those dimensions. I can read them like you could read a book. So when I see someone's soul, and I can look at their actions, and I can look at, how are they feeling? How are they speaking? How are they holding themselves? All of these different mannerisms that will tell me where their soul is positioned in the ether. And I even put together a quiz that helps people identify where their soul is. It'll tell them a percentage of whether it's in heaven, hell, or it's stuck in between both realms. And then it'll give them, if you're stuck in between both realms, you're probably having, very bipolar ups and downs, have high highs and low lows. And you don't really understand why it's happening to you. You're always anticipating the next thing to fall apart because something good is happening to you right now. But the thing is, it doesn't have to fall apart. If you just know that there's an algorithm that God coded for all of us, and that simply, like a mental disease, is just a disconnect from your path. That's it. It's
dis-ease.
Nothing.
It's dis-ease.
Yeah, dis-ease. It is a disconnection from the destined path that was placed here for you. When we don't walk that path, our heart calls to it. It's like a beat in a drum in our heart, and we feel it every morning, and we ignore it, and we go to our mundane job or the thing the system told us to do. So what we've done is we've brought together everything that I had learned from that, everything that my teacher had taught me after he helped me get out of because I had realized so many things, but I was still in my lack of discipline. I had no discipline. I had no structure or efficiency or anything that would actually give me some order and structure in my life that would give me a high quality life. So I added those principles in with my gift of seeing the ether and brought it all into one class. And then we launched that class, and we started to see how was this impacting people? How fast was it impacting them? How were their choices shifting? And we were amazed by how fast people were going from addiction to sober, from depression to happy, from, not walking with their soul to walking with their soul, to greed to here's a gift, like everything was shifting so fast for people that we were like, we have to keep going with this work. So we went with another semester and another semester, and then we felt the call to stop for a second. And we're like, why do we feel the call to stop? And it was because God was getting us ready to start the podcast. And that's the last hour podcast that we do. And he literally delivered all the equipment to our door. We did not buy it. We were procrastinating about it. And he was like, here, you're going to do it. So we started the podcast. And then from there, it has turned into a relaunch of our class and an app that now we can bring people through, so our community can be in one space. So you can get our previous class that we've already done and see the transformation other people had. We're breaking down the classes now. So if you're dealing with, say, your marriage, and you want to find out how to help your marriage or to get in alignment in that area, then you can go to a certain tab and it'll say marriage, and then it'll go over different containers, dimensions of your life, because each thing we do has a container. So like for this podcast, for instance, the podcast itself is a container, right? It has structure and order, a construct of how it forms and functions. And then you have a structure and order of how you bring somebody onto the podcast. That's a container in itself. So we break down every little thing that you could do in everything that you're experiencing in your life into different containers so that you can understand each one of them, give you a God view of your entire existence. Like you're a third person, you're watching yourself third person and overseeing and managing all of that. So you're able to see the garden and where you're watering your fruit and which ones are lacking. And you can then bring balance and harmony into all of it. So that's what we've been doing. And that's our passion. We're going into the steps of a retreat next after this. So
I love it. And I love visual things. So I'm thinking, when you say container, I think most people listening, even if you haven't done the soul work, the spiritual work, the personal work, when you organize things in your house or garage, when it's really organized, you realize the thing that you have way too much of. Yeah. Because you always buy it because for some reason you think I need dental floss or I need white socks or you have this huge basket and then you see where you need to restock. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's from your kitchen containers and Tupperware to your toiletries to your personal inventory. Yeah. You will see where you're depleted and you'll see where, okay, that's good.
Yes. And you'll also see the energy that you feel from it. Yeah. Like when you walk into your house and it's cluttered and you're like, oh God, as soon as they come in, you instantly feel, whether you understand anything or not, your soul feels depleted the moment you walk in. And that is telling you that you're killing yourself in your environment. It's not healing you, it's harming you. And a lot of people live in death chambers right now and they don't even know it. So when you walk in your home and you have it clean, like, as well as I do, anybody that's ever cleaned the room and afterwards they lay on the bed and they're like, whew, it feels good in here.
Yes.
That's your soul telling you I'm being healed now.
Yeah. Yes. And it does. If we just listen, we tell ourselves. I have to ask you an interesting thing I read in a book a while ago about the alchemy of the soul. And it talked about, you have the cross. Uh-huh. And it said this part of the cross, the horizontal, that's like our everyday life. That's the human experience. And then the vertical of the cross, that's our soul experience that we go up and down. But the interesting thing I thought was it said, you can't choose to go down as a soul. Like it happens and we need to learn so that we keep going back up. And I can't paraphrase it as well, but basically I thought, you can't wake up and think, I'm going to really hit rock bottom.
No, you
I'm
don't.
Gonna really hit trust. Like you can't decide that. You can decide to go up in your soul. Like I'm going to clean my house and I'm going to do things and I'm going to feel good. But when we get down, there's a reason or a lesson to learn because you can't choose. Does that make sense?
So here's to give clarity to that. When you say we can't choose to go down, no one is ever going to go, I just want to suffer. Like
I want to go
please
to hell
take me to Sufferville, please. One ticket. No one's going to do that. No. But what people don't realize is that through their day-to-day choices that they do have control over is how they get there. So if they get up and they decide, here's an example that I use in our class. Someone gets up and, they're in a bad mood from the moment that your eyes open, the alarm clock goes off. You already don't like going to the job. And so you immediately are like, oh God, I don't want to do this. So you hit that snooze button. And then all of a sudden now the snooze button doesn't wake you up until you're an hour late. And then you get up and you're just running around. Oh my God, you're in panic trying to get there. On the way there, you get a flat tire. Oh God, my life. How could this be happening to me?
Only me.
Yeah. But in each moment you are presented with an opportunity. That's what people don't realize is that every single second of our life, whether it's a thought, an action, spoken word, feeling, it's an opportunity to either join it or let it go. And if we join it, then we are telling, God's system, which everyone calls the universe, that hey, I like this feeling. Bring it more. I want more of it. So what we do is try to be intentional on what we're choosing. So if we're choosing in anything, I'm going to choose the vibration of heaven. And the thing is most people don't know what encompasses that vibration, what actions, thoughts, feelings, spoken words actually come from that dimension versus the ones that come from the lower dimension. So we have to build this discernment in the middle to be able to know and feel the difference between the two. So when we make a choice that matches the lower frequency, it's going to be a compound effect. It's like you just invested your money, except you invested the currency that you have, which is your energy, your life force that you're supposed to protect and honor and nurture and amplify in everything that you do.
And I think the lower we get, and I say this all to you all because I've been there, I've been stuck and I'm up. But the lower you get, it is like the more sticky. It's more like it's pulling you down there. You know, it's like I don't want to say words like darkness but the more you're entering that lower energy, it's like more, it gets faster. It pulls you faster.
Yeah.
You know,
you're more magnetic to it.
Yeah. It gets greedy and it just wants more of you. And it's easy. You have to just think, no, I'm crawling out. So for men or women listening, that are thinking, I don't know what dimension I'm in. I don't know what my soul's about. I don't know anything other than I am scared. I'm in a marriage I need to leave or a marriage that just ended. And I'm what's the word? Like when you walked
looking for the next step.
When you walked into your mom's place and you just freeze, you're just,
oh yeah. Yeah, panic.
And you're just like I can't do anything. And so I'm just gonna do nothing. What do you tell those people in those spots? What courage could you give them?
Well, one thing I would say is don't hold yourself or dwell on what happened. That's the worst thing that we can do to ourselves is go, well, it could have been, this could have happened and this could have happened. We could be here right now. If this would have went this way, it's all irrelevant because none of it exists. It's all in your head. That's the major thing here is a lot of things that you're freaking out about, that you're suffering about. It's all here. If you were to look around you and touch the physical things in your environment and ask yourself, are those physical things that I can actually touch right now harming me? If they're not, you're fine. It's just your imagination.
I love that. Because I've suffered panic attacks. If you, in that moment, just touch, am I okay?
Yeah. It's so healing to come to the present moment because you forget that you're there. It's so easy to get distracted in the forward and the back. That's where they want us to stay at, because if we're distracted in every other direction, the real reason we're here, which is our soul, we will never accomplish doing our work for.
Yeah. And I even tell clients, because it's when you look to the past, you dwell, it's guilt, it's regret. You look to the future, it can be scary, intimidating. Or you're filling it with dreams that you don't know what it's going to be. You're saying it's can't ever or it will. But if you, speaking of containers, I'm like, if you just live in 24-hour containers.
Yeah.
Just for today. Do it.
And then do it again tomorrow.
And do it again tomorrow. But look at just today. Like if there's an email that's coming that you're really terrified from the lawyer, it's coming. Well, if it's not here today, try to not let it paralyze you today.
Yes.
Just live in the container.
And forgive yourself.
Yes. Isn't that key?
Yeah. Like we forget in our healing process that because we're all about, I need to forgive this person that hurt me. No, forgive you.
Yes.
Forgive you for all the times and all the ways that you allowed, tolerated, and sabotaged yourself. I mean, it's hard to have to stand there and go, man, I did this to me. Nobody wants to do that. There's
I
nobody
stepped
else
on
on the
my
planet.
own. It's like you step on your own rake and it just like,
Yeah.
I know I always think too that I can't honestly say when I look back in hindsight, I can't look at my two daughters and say I did the best I could because I don't think it was the best.
Same.
But I can say I did what I was capable of.
There you go. Exactly. Because we can only do what we're capable of in the
Yeah.
level of our perception and knowing. That's the thing. Man, this is our trade line here is for you know not what you do. Because if you did, you wouldn't do it.
Correct.
And there's no reason for us to carry shame or guilt or anything that is weighing us down. Let it all go. We don't need that weight on our shoulder. How are we going to fly with weight on our shoulder holding us to the ground? So there's no reason to carry any of that because it already happened. I can't go back and change that. But what I can do is I can be proactive right now. I can make the choice right now that will never allow me to go back to that place of being or existing again. And that right there, that is resolution in itself. That's redemption in itself. You don't have to worry about the rest of the details. You don't have to go back to every little person that, oh my God, I might have said the wrong thing to you one time in my life. And I'm sorry. I need to tell you this right now. That's going to drive you crazy if you're trying to do it like that.
Yeah.
Just let it go and don't beat yourself up through the process.
And if people could feel, I did a workshop. I mean, I participated. I didn't lead it. I participated in a workshop where they gave us a list and write down all your emotional baggage. So, or pressures. We didn't know that we were going to have to take that list and literally go in front and stand like this. And for everything on the list, they strapped a weight on us, like a 5 or 10 pound weight, which adds up when you're standing there and they're like, okay, and now you've got this, that's 6 more pounds. And when you can stand there with that physical weight and you can literally think like, I can't do this. I can't carry this. I can't walk with this.
Yeah.
And it was such a good example or demonstration to show like when we can really feel it physically. I mean, we do feel, depression, all those things, but I mean like the weight, like literally the weight of what we carry. It's insane.
Yeah, that's one reason why we like to build the bridge between the physical and the ethereal, because if we can help you feel it in your soul, man, you'll do the work to change it quickly, because then you feel that weight. You're like, oh man, nah, I don't want that. I don't want that. So everything we're trying to, I don't use the word create because I don't need to create God. I just need to get out of God's way and let him do the work through me. That's it. So my vessel's just his, fully surrendered, do what his will with. But one direction that I see him taking us is that I just forgot where I was going again.
I'm thinking, even when you say get out of, let God work through you, but if people, it's the same idea of just, we stand in our own way.
Yes.
Get out of, like, I have looked in a mirror so many times and just said, get out of your way.
Yeah.
You're in your own way.
Yeah. And that's what we do to ourselves. So we're trying to bring people to a space of feeling the difference between where they are, what is considered normal, to what is actually supposed to be normal. So if we can create experiences that physically let them feel the difference between the two, then they can easily go, I don't ever want to choose this suffering again. Because until they feel the difference, they can't. And I say this all the time, they are only choosing 2 different levels of suffering. And they think one is less suffering than the other. So they're going to take the less suffering instead of the no suffering at all. So we want to build experiences with everything to show them there is a different option than the options they have been choosing their entire life.
Well, I'm going to ask you in a minute how everyone can find your app and find all your programs. But I have one question. It's a struggle I have, and I'm sure many, I've gone through everything we've said. I've done it all. But I think the hardest thing to get over is the mom guilt, the affecting your children with your choices.
Yeah.
And like anyone else, you know, it's like you can go, yeah, I did it, or yeah, I did. But when it comes to your children, what advice, like how do you get that to go, the past is the past, but when you're
Yeah.
staring at faces that are affected, it's still in your present.
Yeah. Okay. So for my children, one thing when I was away from them for 4 years,
Right.
they were obviously affected by that. So was I. We were all crying our eyes out every night, wishing we could be together.
Right.
And God had different plans because he wanted me to be the mom that they deserved instead of the mom that they wanted, if that makes sense. They wanted me around.
God wanted you to be the mom they deserved
instead of the mom that they just wanted to be around.
To be around. That's different.
Yeah.
Not to be the mom they wanted, like
Yeah,
the mom
yeah.
at home baking cookies wanted.
Yeah. No. Just they wanted me there,
There.
and he wanted me to become whole again. Because
Yeah.
if I did not become whole again, what would be the purpose of going back around them other than to hurt them further? And that was
Right.
not part of the path for me. My path was about healing. So if I heal me, then I'm by default healing my children. So I can look them in the face and I can sleep very well at night knowing that every step that I am taking, I am leading by example. And I am watching these children make choices that grown people struggle to make, and they're making them with ease now because I spent that time just forgiving myself.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. No one is perfect. We will never be perfect. So this false image, it's literally this image in ourselves of, well, I could be better than I am. Well, of course, every moment we can. But at the end of the day, you being that example of that healed version of you, whether it shows on their face yet or not, whether it shows in their actions yet or not, through time, it's going to rub off on them and their healing will happen through that process. I walked that path myself. All of my children, when I got them back, my middle son, he's borderline autistic at the time, and he wouldn't even have a conversation with me. He barely even have eye contact with me. He wouldn't give me a hug, wouldn't tell me love me, nothing. And that hurt, like I haven't seen you in 4 years. I can't hardly get a hug from you. But at the same time, my level of awareness was he needs time. He needs the same time to heal that I had to take to heal. So I can't force that or push myself on him. I'm going to respect and honor his boundaries and his choices and let him come to me. And it didn't take long for him to pull himself out of that. It didn't take long for us to reverse his autism. It didn't take long for us to get him into a state where nobody even recognizes this child anymore because he's so bubbly and out there, like letting himself have conversations with people all over the place that before he would never even have. So just when it comes to how they are affected, yeah, it hurts. As a parent, it hurts to know you hurt your child, period. There's no sugarcoating that. But you have a choice in whether or not you let that affect you and whether or not you let that drive the choices that you make today, tomorrow, and the next day in regards to your relationship with your child. I mean, only you know how much you've healed, right? That's your walk with God. So you know what you've been through and you know how much you've healed. So if you hold that healing, hold those boundaries, hold that structure, hold those standards for yourself and everyone involved, including your children. Like one thing with my kids, when I learned to respect me and I got them back, they're not disrespecting me. Nobody's disrespecting me, not in my house and not out of my house, but it starts in the house first. So I build up those boundaries and standards of heaven on earth in my home first. So when they go out into the world, they already operate like that. And they know what isn't okay if somebody tries to do it to them, because at home, they don't hear yelling. They don't hear arguing. Their father and I have never even had an argument. 3 years together already. Not one single argument that we've had.
And that's different, to clarify, different than who you divorced.
Yeah, different than who I divorced.
Yep.
So they don't know what it's like to be in an emotionally unstable environment. They see stability. They see logic. They see critical thought. They see self-love, self-worth, self-value. They see obedience to God's will. They see surrendering and letting go. They see healthy behaviors in our home. And that's what's most important to us. No matter what happened, no matter how, my choices impacted them in the past, I can't do anything about it, but I can instill these principles right now and set them up to have a great life and a healing at the same time.
And show them what you did when life gave you lemons, so to speak.
Yeah.
And wow, what you just said, like, I almost started crying there for a moment. That was so powerful, because so many people just live with it. It doesn't matter what age they have, guilt over leaving the grandchildren or breaking the family apart. If there's little kids involved, if there's older kids involved, but I think it's hard because we have the idea of what a person's supposed to be, what we want to be, but then what society says is a good mom or a good dad. And that, in what you just said.
Well, I can break that spell real quick when it comes to someone out there that is holding themselves accountable to what society says you should be as a mom. First, let me break that spell. What society deems as okay and normal has been a manipulated structure. They have manipulated our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions on every level, and then deemed what is unnatural and unnecessary as normal in our heads. And then we go chase the unnatural, and then we can't find resonation with it. And we're like, I don't know where I fit in this world, because you don't fit into a false system that was never supposed to be. So knowing that should give you kind of like a power inside of, well, it's not supposed to be. This is an illusion. This is not the reality that God sent us here to live. We're not supposed to be suffering. That's not what he created for us.
And maybe not suffering's word, but suffering alone or learning alone. Like, that's why I want a divorce community, or your podcast, to create community for people to support each other, have people to share with, grow with, and not feel isolated and alone. But I think that when we look back, way back forever, it was communities coming together, women coming together, men. And so, wow, I know I could talk to you all day. You are amazing. Your insight.
Thank you.
Wow. You just sat down. If people knew, we started off, she was sideways. We got the camera set up. We sat down. I'm like, we'll just go with the flow. Sure. And you're just like, wow. Wow. This was really a gift. Thank you. Thank you so much. And tell us all about where they can find you, your podcast, your app.
All right. Absolutely. So if you look on YouTube, look up the Last Hour podcast. It's also on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Breaker, like all the podcast things that's on there. If you look up The Mirror on Facebook, that is where our class is. That's the page for our class. You'll see testimonies of other people that have come through. And if you look up Heaven, Heven on Facebook, you will see the app that we are launching and what we have going on there. Right now, we're actually allowing founding members in, and those are the people that are going to help us build out the app. But after that, we're going live, and we're so excited to share this content with the world.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Your openness and honesty is really the best service I think anyone can give, is to just share so openly and be so proud and strong.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was really, really a treat. I appreciate it.
Well, okay. I would love to have you on our podcast as well and spotlight what you're doing. So we'll schedule that one too.
For sure. Love it. All right. Thank you. And I'm actually so speechless. I don't even want to say goodbye, but I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. And we hope to have you back. I know you have so much to share. And
yes, absolutely.
Your app is going to be called Heaven?
Yes. Heven. Yes.
Okay. And is it on Google yet?
It's
Or
not there yet. We
is it
haven't went live.
Passion?
It's with passion. The only thing is that we are heavily censored because our work is very, very powerful. And we throw people in front of the mirror of truth that they can't have denial with, and it just transforms them. And that work, we have witnessed every page that we have get shadow banned. People try to tag our page and they're told, if you tag this page, what you're posting right now will not get viewed by anybody. So I spent the last few weeks talking to thin air about all of this launch. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to have to start going on shows because the social platforms are blocking me at this point. But yeah, whether they block me or not, God's will always prevail. So I laugh at their attempts instead of getting upset by it.
Yeah, no, it's just not the right time then, but the door is going to open.
Oh, it is.
So, all right. Well, thank you. And Ni Miyah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.